At 2:47 a.m., alarms sound, shattering the silence of the Tikhoretsk command center. A single hostile signature cuts through the airspace. A Ukrainian drone, low and fast. This is the moment the Russian crew has been waiting for. The commander's voice is like cold steel. War. A $1.5 million S-400 missile lights up the night. A roaring testament to the Russian Air Force. The drone isn't just shot down, it disintegrates on impact with Cuba in a shower of metal and circuitry. Inside the bunker, suffocating tension gives way to self-assured smiles. A job well done. The environment is safe, but the celebrations are based on a fatal flaw. This state of high alert, prepared to shoot at every shadow, emerged 3 weeks ago with the collapse of Trump-brokered peace talks. With diplomacy dead, Putin chose overwhelming force. A storm of steel ordered the creation of a final, decisive strike. This warehouse in Tikhoretsk became the heart of a vast arsenal filled with 2,000 tons of missiles and scanners and 19,000 drones, all waiting for the signal to strike. That is, while the Russians register their successful kill, they are unaware that the deafening roar of their own missiles provides perfect sound cover for Ukraine's real weapon. A 12-man ghost team trapped in the darkness of the swamp, ready to shut down the entire operation at Arrow 2 at 5 a.m. while the Russians still bask in the glow of the successful capture, the 12-man UR team heads back into the swamp. Their transportation solution alone is a case study in materials science. 30-pound nanocarbon rafts. Think of them not so much as boats, but as military-grade carbon fiber bicycles, incredibly light and strong, designed to move with almost zero noise or thermal footprint. The payload designs, a perfect blend of digital warfare and raw kinetic power for each Javelin missile, consist of a specialized bunker buster and 6 customized FP or ZO drones. Now, the real genius that made this operation possible, the proprietary technology, lies within these drones. They are not radio-controlled, which is like trying to run your business over public Wi-Fi. Instead, each is connected directly to its operator via a 5-mile-long fiber optic cable. It's like giving each drone a direct Google Fever connection to the operator's mind. It's a closed network that is impossible to hack or physically interfere with. The team is gearing up. The first FP drone goes live. Its rotors silently slice through the dense air. It rises, hugging the surface of the Cuban River just 5 feet away. Then the AI module springs into action, emitting a complex web of deceptive signals. On the Russian radar network, one drone suddenly becomes a swarm. The first wave, a hostile takeover bid made to attract the S-400's attention, was now live. The only question was, will the Russians fall for this trap and exhaust their missile stockpile? At 3 a.m., the Russian S-400 is one of the most advanced air defense systems in the world. However, like any powerful computer, it is only as intelligent as the data it receives, and at this moment it was feeding on a perfectly prepared stream of disinformation. On the Tombstone radar, the Phantom Swarm looked like a full-scale occupation force. The Russian commander made a decision when faced with a situation that seemed like an imminent and overwhelming attack. This was not a calculated military tactic. This was a high-risk margin call, a desperate move to close a position he could ill afford to lose. Engage all primary targets. Fire. 6 more missiles out of 3 million roared skyward, an expenditure of $9 million authorized in seconds. The return on this investment was the successful destruction of 2 real FP-Su drones. A tactical victory that was a strategic disaster. The problem was that the expensive equipment was fighting a massive environmental glitch. The dense fog was interfering with the S-400's Doppler filtering. Think of it as if the advanced noise cancellation in a high-end Sony headset were suddenly trying to process a hurricane. The system overloaded, rendered incapable of distinguishing the real threat from background noise. On the ground, the situation was even worse. The patrol vehicles sent to capture it found their high-powered engines useless. Response times were reduced to dial-up speeds by the thick, unforgiving mud, the one thing their advanced technology could not overcome. The element of surprise was no longer there. Russia's entire defense network was on high alert. But in the process, Ukraine had forced them to expend $9 million of their most advanced reserves. A perfect trade. While Russia lost a fortune, Ukraine had sacrificed only 2 pawns. At 3:05 a.m., a direct attack would be suicide, as Russia's entire network was now on high alert. That's why Ukraine opted for a software update instead. Team Her deployed its secret weapons, each containing 3 GPS beacons no bigger than a deck of cards. Think of them as the military equivalent of an Apple AirTag designed to scream with perfect digital precision. I am era, designed for a single purpose. One by one they were placed across the open field, transforming the featureless, swampy terrain into a digitally mapped dead zone. This move completely flipped the script. Yes, this was no longer a problem for Ukraine. This was the ultimate camouflage, allowing the Javelin teams to operate completely invisibly. The Russians were once again taken in. The S-400, in a blind panic, detected and fired new signals, this time chasing the markers. Like a dog chasing a laser pointer. Another $1 million wasted on a missile trying to destroy a small electronic scoreboard. And just at that moment of distraction, the first Javelin was shouldered. The target was not the main depot. It was still a Russian command and control vehicle. The launch was almost a silent whoosh. The missile rose, then slammed down, turning the Russian Home Defense Command Center into a twisted wreckage of burning metal. Through sheer cleverness they had just won their first exchange, but in doing so they had left a shiny trail of breadcrumbs leading directly to the spits where they were holed up. At 3:10 in the morning the Javelin throw was flawless execution. But in the world of high-stakes operations, every action leaves a data trail. The problem with a physical connection like fiber optic cable is that it leaves a physical footprint. A 10-man spit patrol scouring the area found a single 0.009 mm fiber optic cable stuck in the mud. They closed in, following the line. The mission and the lives of the 12 operators now hung in the balance. Suddenly, a flare flashed in the sky above us, flooding the swamp with an eerie chemical light. This was a network discovery ping that instantly revealed the general location of the Orizo team. The Spetsnaz were now only 500 feet away. This was the moment when the mission should have failed. However, the HAUR team responded not as soldiers, but as a world-class cybersecurity team that patched the zero-day vulnerability in real time. Their counterattack was a brilliant 3-layer defense protocol. First, they dropped a biological smoke bomb. This is a thermal cloaking device that absorbs and scrambles heat signatures, rendering it invisible to the Spetsnaz scopes. This is the real-world equivalent of activating an advanced VPN that also hides your device's heat output. Second, an operator dropped a thin nylon cable, a decoy wire, that led into a deep pit of mud. It was a classic trap, an irresistible bait. They finally activated the self-destruct on a spare FPUM drone. The sharp crack of the 2 kilograms of explosive was a sensory denial of service attack that overloaded the SP's hearing and attention. The combination worked perfectly. The SPs, blinded by smoke and deafened by the sound of the explosion, followed the tripwire into the thickest part of the swamp, sinking knee-deep in mud. They had just survived. Now he had seconds to finish the job. At 3:15 in the morning, the SP's special forces were pinned down by a wall of swamp fire of their own making. The biosmoke was interfering with the S-400's aiming resolution. This wasn't just a window of opportunity, this was a full-blown system vulnerability, and Her's team was about to apply the final charge. The order was given. The 4 remaining FPM drones lifted off in perfect synchronized silence, leaving fiber optic cables trailing in their wake. Simultaneously, the remaining 3 javelins were placed on the shoulders. This was their cocoon, a multi-layered hybrid attack vector. The same principle is what makes an exploit, which is a combination of hardware and software, so destructive. The Javelin missiles were brute force attacks with tandem warheads that could penetrate more than 30 inches of reinforced concrete and were aimed at key munitions bunkers. This is the kinetic equivalent of a SQL injection that wipes the database. Meanwhile, the EFPUMCU drones performed surgical strikes. Their targets were the vulnerable radar arrays of the S-400 tomb. Think of it as a sophisticated attack that not only crashes a server but also physically burns out the motherboard, preventing it from rebooting again. The launches were a symphony of controlled violence. As the Warthogs soared into the sky, 3 near-silent whistles rang out, powered by onboard processors running targeting algorithms that would make Google's self-driving cars AI seem simple. Seconds later, all 4 drones topped 100 miles per hour, their operators guiding them with a flawless, lag-free fiber optic video feed. The Russians were completely blind. The elite troops were stuck in mud. Billion-dollar radars were clogged with smoke, and the entire defense network was on the verge of catastrophic failure. System-wide. The countdown to 0 had begun. At 3:16 a.m., 3 Javelins, their onboard processors already calculating the perfect attack trajectory from top to bottom, adjusted their flaps and dived. This is the fire and forget autonomy of a Tesla on autopilot, but instead of navigating traffic, it's homing in on a precise set of GPS coordinates on a reinforced concrete roof. Simultaneously, 4 FPCOC-T drones were screaming toward their targets, the S-400's tombstone-shaped radar arrays. This was a surgical strike designed to permanently damage the system's motherboard. The first Javelin warhead struck the main bunker with the concentrated energy of a shaped explosive. Not only did it hit its mark, it executed a flawless command to breach the system's main firewall. Impact. What followed was not chaos. Physics. The Javelin warhead has a feature that makes it devastatingly effective, a programmed explosion delay of 1.1 seconds. That tiny delay is the key. This is a feature designed to ensure that the explosion occurs inside the bunker, not outside. As a result, the castle instantly becomes a pressure cooker. The blast wave, with nowhere to escape, is reflected off the interior walls, multiplying its own destructive energy. This is a brutal lesson in thermodynamics. This pressure wave is what causes the real damage. It doesn't just topple objects, it also causes hardware failures on a full-scale disaster scale. The reinforced concrete support columns of the building's skeletal chassis snap like toothpicks. The roof collapses, swallowing the structure whole from the inside out, and then come the after effects of system collapse. 2,000 tons of munitions ignite, setting off a chain reaction that destroys all 19,000 North Korean drones in the arsenal in a fiery explosion. Alongside them, the Koska-4 electronic warfare system, a piece of hardware as complex as a Google server farm and worth millions of dollars, had been cooked over a high flame until its delicate circuits were reduced to silicon slag. It was a total and complete wipeout of the system. At 3:18 a.m. on the ground, the Russian response was not a military operation. This was a clumsy attempt at corporate damage control. Specs and FSB units surrounded the area, their primary task not to perform rescues but to enforce a total information blackout. Sirens blared all night, a desperate effort to create the illusion of control. But you can't hide a crater the size of a football field. The immediate human cost was devastating. 25 senior Russian officers, the entire local command and logistics team were permanently taken offline. A few hours later, the digital receipt for the operation arrived. A government fire monitoring vehicle registered a thermal anomaly at the exact coordinates of the depot. A heat signature so large it was visible from orbit. The data was undeniable. Ukraine had just eliminated one of Russia's most valuable assets for the next 72 hours. The explosion at Tikhoretsk not only created a crater, it also triggered a total supply chain collapse across the entire system. It started with the command network. With the departure of 25 key logisticians, the warehouse's operational brains simply disappeared. Phones went unresponsive, encrypted networks went silent, and the system's core operating system collapsed. The first casualty of this digital silence was Russian artillery across the Donbass front. Thousands of primary end users of this supply chain realized that orders for weapons and ammunition had suddenly dried up. Behind them, the supply chain also froze. Truck convoys waited in vain at assembly areas, waiting for orders that would never arrive. Overnight delivery service to Russia's front lines was permanently cancelled. The ripple effect reached the Kremlin with a stock market crash that had a catastrophic psychological impact. Putin's steel storm was reduced to a light drizzle before it even began. And so, with 12 operators, 6 FPV drones, and 4 javelins, Ukraine pulled off the most successful leveraged buyout in modern military history. The final math is a ruthless lesson in return on investment. With an operating cost of less than $1 million, it successfully operated a $1 billion stronghold and derailed a $1 billion attack. You don't need a Wall Street hedge fund to see the inclusivity in this business. The 21st century has shown that the winner is not the one with the most expensive equipment, but the one who exploits the enemy's most critical weaknesses using cheaper, smarter technology. We'll continue to keep you up to date with the latest developments and provide detailed analysis. Don't forget to like the video and follow Military Chronicle.